What's the deal with Jephthah?
So last week, we read through Judges 11:29 through 40, and in Jephthah's daughter being murdered and used as a burnt sacrifice. That story is upsetting, to say the very least. So exactly, how do we find meaning and understanding in this tragic tale? Well, it's going to take a bit of effort, but there is much to be learned beyond the surface of this story. And we get our first insight in the complexity of this story, well, in the very first line, which says, "Then the Spirit of the Lord was upon Jephthah." Can you imagine? The Spirit of the Lord, wow! What more assurance of victory could Jephthah ask for? Well, apparently having the Spirit upon him, it just wasn't enough for this tall, strong warrior with the finest armor and the best weapons. But let's compare his upcoming battle with the contest between David and Goliath. Now, this young man was totally inexperienced in combat and the art of war, but he was about to face a giant of a man wearing full battle armor made of bronze, and he was armed to the teeth with weapons of war. So what did David do? Did he look to run? Did he look to hide? Did he look for alternatives? Did he even consider any of the options? This is what David did. He sprinted. Sprinted, I tell you, at Goliath. David didn't hesitate because he had no doubts about God's support. Unfortunately, not so Jephthah. He was worried about his chances for success. So let's face it, to worry means you just don't trust God. So he decided to hedge his bets, and he tried to manipulate God by offering a sacrifice in the future for God's intervention now. Now let's look at that, offering something in return for something else. Well, we call that bartering. Do you remember Popeye's old buddy Wimpy? He would regularly say, "I will gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today." Now that's bartering, pure and simple. Attempting to get something now for the promise of a future act or future payment. So now you tell me, is it ever a good idea to try to barter with Yahweh? Yet we do it all the time, don't we? And mostly we never fulfill our end of the deal. Here, does this sound familiar? Lord, if you will let me win the Mega Millions lottery, by golly, I'll donate half to the church. Now, even though God wasn't on board with this, before the drawing day even arrives, we're already debating this with ourselves. You know, that's an awful lot of money for the church. Church really doesn't need that kind of money. I'll make it 10%. No, wait, I'll make it 5%. That's still a sizable amount. Not you? Well, then how about this? You get stopped for speeding and you whisper a quick prayer before the trooper gets to your window. God, if I can just get a warning, I promise I'll never speed again. Then after you get that warning and the trooper is out of sight, off you go, speeding away, jumping jolly down the road. Boy, look at you go. Okay, just one more, because this is kind of fun. Father, if you can get me that promotion, I'll never ask you for another thing for the rest of my life. Yeah? Well, how long does that pledge last? In the story, that future payment is called a vow, but I think contract is a better description. Continuing now in Judges 11:30 through 31. Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, "If you give the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes out from the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the Ammonites shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering." Really? You gotta be kidding me. Jephthah's vow was both unnecessary and an affront to God. God's plan was already to deliver Israel. It didn't matter what Jephthah did. It didn't matter if he did nothing at all, because God's plans will always prevail. But what makes his vow all the more insidious is that God doesn't want his people sacrificing children. Those are the practices of pagans and cultists. God has been pretty clear to the Israelites about this and how and why burnt offerings were to be made. A sacrifice was a way of honoring God, not a bargaining chip to purchase God's favor. This was addressed by God right out of the chute. In Exodus 13:13 we read, "Redeem with a lamb every firstborn donkey, but if you don't redeem it, break its neck." Then it goes on to say, redeem every firstborn son. There's no ambiguity there. Notice the Lord doesn't give an option for the sons of man. We're to redeem them. Now wait, did I hear somebody ask for more proof? Wow, you came to the right place. Let's read Leviticus 18:21. "You shall not give any of your children to offer them to Moloch, and so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord." Then there's this in Deuteronomy 12:31. "You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way, for every abominable thing that the Lord hates, they have done for their gods. For they even burn their sons and daughters in the fire for their gods." Now finally, according to Leviticus 1, we're told 3 times. It is a burnt offering, a food offering, an aroma pleasing to God. Can anybody explain to me how the aroma of a burnt child would be pleasing to God? So here's the problem as I see it. Does God really need your help to accomplish his goals? Well, of course not. And by offering barter for his favor, well, that plain and simply comes from a work-based belief of salvation, completely disregarding that we cannot earn God's favor. Now that bears repeating. God's favor can't be earned, can't be purchased for any price. God's gifts are purely through his grace and his grace alone.
This is a good place to end part 2. Next Wednesday, we'll be getting into part 3, and we'll be looking a little deeper yet. We're all in this together, and I'm pulling for you.